Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and it is the 5th of January, 5:30 in the morning, Calgary, Alberta time. I'm just waking up and having a coffee, and this is one child abuse survivor to another, and we're just talking about coping lists this week. And if you're just tuning in, this is a Blog Talk Radio. It's a live streaming internet radio program, and you can call in. I have a guest call-in number, and that is 917-889-3736. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's you want to share your story, or you think there's some good information that someone could use, be sure you do phone in. That's a U.S. number, and you're more than welcome to phone in. I also have a chat room, which I have some information typed up in there. So if you register as a user, you can sit in the chat room, and if you don't feel like being on the air, you can just leave me a message. Just make sure you put private if you want it to stay between you and me. And I just wanted to continue on with a great website. It's at www.irvingstudios.com, and it is Michael C. Irving. He is a PhD, a psychotherapist, and sculptor, and he's the creator and originator of the Child Abuse Monument up here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I was scrolling through looking around the website, and because there's some great information for survivors, adult survivors of child abuse, and there's some good information there. I would suggest to anyone who's suffering from this type of thing to check it out, because there's all kinds of good information there. And I found just under the self-care tab that was there was all kinds of information regarding adult survivor issues, and one was to create and use personalized coping lists. So we were kind of looking at some of that before, and then yesterday I thought we might continue on just looking at that, because there's some good information here. We were talking about boundaries yesterday, and that's what he's written here. How to make a list for boundaries. Like many times he says, many times when you are overstressed or in a crisis, problems with boundaries are part of the issue. Identify what the boundary problems are and what can be done to shore up your boundaries. This can help you to feel more comfortable. So then I thought I'd sort of go into what is meant kind of by boundaries, and I'll just read that this morning. We read some of it yesterday, but I'll just go ahead and continue on. It says, abuse destroys boundaries. During child abuse, boundaries are totally ignored, violated, and shattered. To survive abuse, you had to dissociate from any sense of boundary. As the deadening response to abuse became habitual, you missed out on developing the inner sense of boundaries. You did not pick up the lessons that healthy role models in your world displayed. Part of the healing and coping process for survivors of abuse is to reconnect with the inner sense of boundary. To learn ways to give yourself boundaries and let others know what your boundaries are is a difficult but vital task. And I thought this was very useful for anyone who has been in an abusive situation, not just child abuse, but domestic violence and date violence, just anything, any kind of abuse situation that you might have sadly been subjected to. And so that's why I thought we'd talk a little bit more about this, because boundaries were something that I never really thought of when as I was walking my road to healing. And my sister would talk about them sometimes, because I think she's done some reading, but I had never really gotten into looking into it. And so I thought maybe I'd go into some more of that. And it was yesterday we were talking about identifying boundaries. There's physical distance, there's emotions, time, space, and thoughts, and then creating cognitive boundaries. I'm going to read through those again. They're so good. Remember, the best time to gain control of panic and anger or fear is early, before it gets really going. Consciously think about how you feel and what you need to say. Visualize a barrier around negative emotions, and see a barrier or wall between you and what you want to keep out. Visualize a protective bubble around you, and I was mentioning that I've done that many times. Image or even verbalize that you now have control over your body, boundaries, and the abuser. Assert boundaries out loud to your abuser without them there. So just practice saying it. Practice saying what your boundaries are. Visualize yourself as strong and empowered. And this is very helpful too, because how you see yourself, that's so important, right? Trust your gut feeling and inner voice, and that I do. Practice saying no assertively but not aggressively. Tell people what your limits are. Visualize that you are surrounded in healing white light, and this is something I've done before. Tell yourself that you are worthwhile, and look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself and approve of who you are, and that's so important. And banish guilt. So these are some of the cognitive boundaries that we need to create because we didn't learn them, and because if you grew up in an abusive home and no one showed you how to, proper boundaries, then if the boundaries were crossed, then we have to learn that as adults. So here's creating physical boundaries. Hold your belly in or hold a set of your muscles taut, like firm. Feel a wall or bubble around yourself that keeps out what you want. Feel your energy or sense of self, or sense of strength, Feel yourself being tall or getting taller. So you see yourself bigger, right, and stronger. Cross your arms or legs. Move to a location where you feel stronger or more protected. Experiment with changing your posture to a position where you feel grounded and empowered. And wear clothes or accessories that make you feel better, more protected, or stronger. And be aware of colors that give you strength or a sense of confidence. Using your body and no words, practice saying no. Don't mess with me, back off, with your body. That's quite interesting. Actually, I didn't ever think of that. That's just something that I wouldn't have thought of, and it never crossed my mind. That's quite good. Use that body sense to say no to what caused the internal memories of old pain, and feel a physical and time distance between yourself and the old hurts. So I guess we're supposed to feel a physical and time distance. So actually feel the distance between ourselves and the old hurts, the old pain, and the old trauma. Seek the distance between you and others. See the distance between you and others. So, visually, measure out the distance between me and someone else. And think about and listen to the distance that feels comfortable between you and others. From a physical sense, practice not merging with others' emotions and issues. So, creating a container, I'll just keep reading on here. Imagine an object or a place where your flashbacks can be stored. Imagine a flashback in a room. Imagine a point far off in the distance. See the room with the flashback moving off to a distant point and getting smaller and smaller as it gets further and further away. Find an actual object for storage. Write down flashbacks or draw flashbacks and put them in the container. They can be taken out at a later date if desired. Make and decorate a container in a meaningful way. Ask someone who you see as strong or supportive to give you a container. Oh, that's always a good idea. That's really cool. There's some good stuff. Imagine a safe place, a person, or an imaginary protector who takes care of you or creates containment of the flashback for you. And find your strongest place inside and provide containment for your inner child. And that's something that I haven't done, a lot of work on, is my inner child. And I've done some. It's obvious. I'm actually quite well now, but for a long time I knew that my inner child was very hurt, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. I know I must have done something right because I feel quite well now, but I still would like to do some work on that and do some reading up and do some research. Here's one, creating an imaginary safe place. Image a safe place. It can be a real or imaginary place. What do you see, especially colors? What sounds do you hear? What sensations do you feel? What smells do you smell? What people or animals would you want in your safe place? Imagine a protective bubble, wall, or boundary around your safe place. Imagine a door or gate with a guard at your safe place. And imagine a lock and key to your safe place, and only you can unlock it. And you can draw or make a collage that represents your safe place. Choose a souvenir of your safe place, a color, an object, a song. Keep your image of your safe place so you can come back to it when you need to, and make a relaxation tape of your safe place. This can be combined with breathing. So this is quite interesting. He's got some good ideas here, creating imaginary safe places for people who are suffering, from all kinds of disorders or post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that, or just having flashbacks. You can create containers, and you can just visualize putting your flashbacks in the container and then putting the lid on. And so, my voice is actually not that great this morning. But it is so early for me. Sorry about that. So, this is some really great information, and I'm just so glad to be able to share it with you. There's lots more, and we'll just keep going. I wanted to, before we get too far away from boundaries, I kind of wanted to just go through the boundary problems flare up during hard times section. Excuse me. Many times when you are overstressed or in a crisis, problems with boundaries are part of the issue. Identify what the boundary problems are and what can be done to shore up your boundaries. This can help you feel more comfortable. So list number 2, make yourself a list of what to do to create boundaries. So you can put, these are just suggestions that he has here. Tighten my belly, identify how I'm feeling, say what I think, at least to myself, imagine a barrier around me, cross my arms, wear my shield pin, etc. Make your own personalized list. So we need to make our own boundary list and our own, what works for us, right? Because we're all different, and what might work for me might not work for someone else. So it's really quite good. There's lots of information on this website and on this particular self-care a coping list, creating coping lists about grounding, visual grounding, grounding through breathing. And there's lots of stuff about creating a safe environment in the here and now. And that's always that looks quite interesting. Maybe we'll go into this stuff tomorrow. Self-nurture, soothing deeds, and keeping busy, healthy distractions, art and playful activity, taking care of your body. So we'll continue on with this tomorrow. And if you are suffering out there with child abuse, if you're in an abusive situation right now, please get help, and don't just sit and suffer in silence. Really, silence is the problem. And I didn't reach out, and I never wanted anybody to really know about my situation except for really close friends. But I'd only talk about it to certain people if I trusted them. I didn't have a problem talking about it, but it's not, I wouldn't necessarily have gone public with it years ago. I was just not comfortable with that. But now, because of what I'm doing, I feel it's really necessary to speak up and not suffer in silence, because that's a sad way to live, right? It's really hard to make relationships like that, and you need to find a support network, a group of people who can identify and relate to what you're talking about. I know that's what I've done. And so I'm going to spend the last couple of minutes just going through some of these websites, just in case you've missed them before. And I actually find new stuff all the time. I haven't actually written down any new stuff, but I'll be doing that because I went and did some research yesterday. So I have some more different things to bring to the show. So, but I just thought maybe I'd go through. I'm a volunteer for Dream Catchers for Abused Children. And they are down in the States and also in the UK, and kind of spreading, which is just awesome. And they're going to have a Blog Talk Radio show, so be sure and check that out, because Donna Kashir is going to host that with another host, a co-host, and it is going to be so good. I know that I'll be tuning in, and you can just go type into your browser Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and you can pull up their website. And they are everywhere. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere, and you can just get some great information there. The Silver Braid organization, I can't say enough about these guys. The Silver Braid organization is just, there's a group of networks within it, and I would just suggest that you start looking into the Silver Braid org if you are suffering from any kind of sexual abuse or sexual exploitation. And there's about 90 seconds left. There's a Silver Braid Survivors faith-based support group, Silver Braid Survivors Support Group for Women of Sexual or Violent Abuse. It's a Ning group, and I belong to that. You can be a member. And I also belong to Child Abuse Survivors, a safe place for survivors and supporters. And that is, you can go right in there, just type in Child Abuse Survivors. There is some information there on that. It's a great website. But you can also join the community, and you just have to register. You can register, and you can use an anonymous name. You don't have to give your real name, and you can find people who have gone through the same type of abuse that you have and suffered somewhat similar abuse, and understand how it feels and understand what needs to happen for healing. There's lots of people that have done some great healing work and know how to help us out. So that's what I would suggest. Make sure that you do get some help. And if you're suffering right now and your life is being threatened and your children's lives are being threatened, make sure you phone 911. So important. And it's just so important to me. And why? Because I care, and I know I had to walk it out, and I'm so glad that I'm still here to be able to spread the word and share the word that it can happen. You can have a good life, and that you do matter, you do count, and you have to reach out. So there's about 10 seconds. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 5:30. And until then, take care.